Hello everyone and welcome to the new Coach Dev Academy Lab Guide. I'm Corentin Guinez, so you're for Simmercy, and today we are on the Nurburgring Nordschleife, the 24 hours layout for the week 10 of the Falcon Tire Sports Car Challenge. As you can see, we are using the Porsche 708 GT4. As usual at first, I'm gonna go with the lap and then I'm gonna try to give you as many details as possible without taking too long, because as you can imagine, the track is very long, and I don't wanna speak for 2 hours. I guess it's gonna be way too long for you guys, so I'm gonna try to give you as many details as possible without speaking for 1 hour. So yep, let's get started. Alright guys, so we go for the lap around the Nordschleife, so start finish line, and then we will head into the first corner. So for the first corner I'm braking pretty much around the 150 on the left, so that's the main reference I'm looking at. And as you can see then, just trying to stay on the left, trying to go deep on the brakes. If we are checking delta, I'm just reaching about 85%. Maximum braking is at the end, and it's 93%. So yeah, I'm not never reaching full braking, if that's what you want to know. 85% for the first braking, and then as you can see, I'm just gonna try to hold as long as I can the left side before turning to the right. As you can see, I will just release the brake down to second, and then I will cut as much as I can, of course, without cutting too much, because I don't want to drive across the bollard on the inside, which would lead to a slowdown, I guess, or an off track. So yeah, that's what I'm doing into the first corner. As you can see, releasing the brakes, and then once I'm out of this first corner, I'm just going on throttle, but not for that long, because then I have to already steer to the left for the exit of the approach of turn 2, I mean. So as you can see, going on the brake, then I will just try to make sure I can like take a good amount of curb on the inside, but not too much, because I don't wanna make the car bounce on it and then lose the traction. So I wanna make sure I take as much track as I can on the inside, but at the same time I don't wanna cut too much, because there is a risk of losing traction with the car bouncing. As you can see, the bounce is quite limited on the exit, so it was quite good. Took some curb, but not too much. So yeah, this was quite good. And then on the way out, you need to be careful about like how much steering you are putting before going full throttle. So yeah, you have to make sure you can open the steering quickly. Then we are heading into the next corner of the GP. So this time just using the exit road on the right side. I will use the end of the exit road, and then as you can see, I'm gonna go on the brake. Now going on the brake around 60%, I would say, holding it until I'm reaching the apex, and then as you can see, once I'm on the apex, going on power, stay with third gear, and then on the way out, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not too wide on the exit, so then I can prepare the next corner. As you can see, going to the left, and then as soon as I'm alongside the beginning of the curb, I'm just gonna go middle of the track, sorry. On the brakes, as you can see, just about 55, 60%, I would say. It's not a massive braking. So yeah, middle of the track, on the brakes, and then same. On the brakes, you will slowly release the brakes. I think I dropped to second for that one. Yeah, dropping to second. Then, as you can see, we're releasing the brakes, getting the rotation, and then once I'm into the corner alongside the curb, and I can see now some of the exit runoff, then I can go on power. Of course, in the first part, I'm just trying to manage the power, and then as soon as the steering gets open, as you can see now, then I go full power. Then we are going to go faster into the next corner, which is the Goodyear hairpin. So for that one, I'm just using the beginning of the pavement on the left. As soon as the car is on it, I'm just going on the brakes. So nothing particular really. Just putting the car on the left on the bricks, and then once the car is on the bricks, going on the brake. As you can see, quite deep braking zone. It's about 75% or something. Yeah, about 80%. So it's a big braking zone. You need to slow down quite a lot the car. As you can see, I'm going into the corner, but I'm not quite taking the apex. I just try to like go for the inside. Then I will just go a bit wider, and then I will like take the late apex of the corner. So as you can see, trying to brake late, trying to brake straight, I would say, from there. So that's why I'm steering a bit to the left, and then dropping to second. Car gets a bit wider, then middle of the corner, releasing the brakes, and then this is where the magic starts with the throttle, getting the rotation, like trying to open the steering, but at the same time I cannot open the steering too early because I need to make the corner. But then once I'm facing the exit, opening the steering and then full throttle. Make sure I use as well the curb on the outside. That's why you can open the steering as well a bit earlier, because you have that curbing which makes the exit a bit wider. So yeah, then we are climbing up to the S's. So as you can see, using the curb on the right side, then I will stay pretty much flat out. I think I'm lifting a tiny bit just before going on the curb, but it's really like it's a very small amount of lift. So yeah, on the curb, diving to the left, taking the curb on the left as well, a bit of lift, and then it's very important to make sure you can open that steering as early as you can when you are off that curb. Then same, taking all of the curb on the right hand side, and then we are heading into the next corner again. So for this one, as you can see, you put the car to the right into the runoff just before the 100, like a good 5 meters before the runoff. Actually, it's pretty much just between the both hundreds I'm braking. So yeah, just before that 100, that's for sure. Going on the brake, same, stay with third. For that one, you don't need to drop to second. As you can see, going into the corner, releasing the brakes, getting the curb on the inside, and then once I'm on the curb, I can go on throttle. The exit is quite wide, so you can push a bit on the outside, but just wait being off the curb before you are really pushing. Then you turn to the left because you want to prepare this one. So on power, turning to the left, and then once the car is to the very left on the line, then I'm starting to brake, but I'm really braking slightly because you don't need to slow down the car that much. So going slightly on the brake, and then as you can see, I'm trying to get the rotation. and then once I'm close to the curb, I can go on power. I stay with third, and on the exit, I'm just trying to quickly open the steering once again, using all of the track, and we are going fast forward. Nothing to tell you about in this long straight. Now entering, I think it's the Vettel chicane. Just braking, as you can see, at 60, I would say, so before the 50. I will stay with fourth gear going into that one. So as you can see, braking at the 60. On the brakes, same, braking around 65%, I would say. I stay with fourth gear, then turning in, releasing the brakes to get the rotation on the way in. And then once I'm near the curb, as you can see, I'm near the curbing, then I'm going on power. As you can see, I will cut a bit the inside, but not that much. I think I stay on the curb. So yeah, as you can see, I just stay on the curb. And then I stay on power once again, lifting a bit between the two. And once again, cutting. As you can see, I stay within the limit. I'm not touching the gravel or anything. So yeah, that's what you need to do going into the Vettel chicane. Then on the way out, it's better to lift a tiny bit because the car can get some oversteer. So yeah, just be careful about the exit. Then we will enter into the Nordschleife. So for the braking reference, entering the Nordschleife, I'm just using the tire marks on the track. As you can see, middle of the track, braking at the beginning of the tire marks, about 50%, just a bit under 50%. Holding the brakes, dropping to second. Then I just try to keep the car as much as I can on the inside. Good thing is that the corner is going uphill, so it does slow down the car naturally, and then you can go for the power, getting the rotation. Then important to really open the steering on the way out because it's really easy to catch some oversteer once again. And as you can see, I'm gonna get out of the corner real close of the wall. For the next corner, as you can see, I will open up the corner, the entry, by going on the using a bit of the pit exit of the one of the layout, the short layout of the Nordschleife. It's a German word, so I prefer not to say it. But yeah, just using the pit exit route of this layout. And as you can see, I will just drop to second on the brake once again. By the way, I'm just braking when I'm past the guide rail on the right side. So guide rail passed, on the brakes, down to second, and then I just hold the brakes until I'm reaching the apex. And as you can see, once I'm on the apex, going in on power, then using all of the curbing, and then as you will see, this is going to be full flat out. Just make sure you're not going too deep on the left because there is like a deep right here which makes the car getting really loose. So just make sure you turn in before reaching. You can see how much the car moves. So yeah, it's better sometimes to drive a bit more to the inside to avoid that, because if you are really going too close to the line, it can make the car really loose. So be careful about this. So full flat out, as you can see, just try to be really smooth on the steering angle. That's very important. Then going into this corner, braking at the end of the whiting on the track. You can see that it's been painted on the track. So just brake at the end of that thing. As you can see on the brakes, I just bring the car into the first part of the corner. So I will hold the brakes, bringing the car right here. Then I will just brake once again. So as you can see, I'm releasing the brakes when I'm reaching this one, and then between the two, I will go back on the brake to slow down once again the car. But I'm not braking the same amount because I want to make sure I get the rotation entering this one. So yeah, I will drop to third, I guess. Yeah, dropping to third between the two. So yeah, back on the brakes. Then I just try to get the rotation out of the corner, going on power, just trying to make sure I'm not going too hard on power because I don't want to catch some understeer going too strong on power. Then I just try to bring the car back to the middle of the track. I will just lift a bit, just try to make sure I use as much track as I can. So as you can see, I'm being quite aggressive on the inside, but that's okay. The car doesn't move too much. You have to be really smooth once again with the steering angle, so then you can make sure the car remains stable. Then a bit of braking before entering this right-hander. So as you can see on the brakes, then using the curbing on the inside, but not too much because you don't want to get enough track. And then as you can see, I will just brake a tiny bit before entering this left one, and then back on power on the way out. Using the curb once again, then pretty much the same, using the painted stuff on the track, and then once you arrive near the end of them, you can go on the brake. You don't need to brake that much for that one. You just brake around 50%, and then you just try to bring the car on the curb, on the brakes, and then once you are on the curb, you lose the throttle to get the rotation, get the exit speed, and then you can cut this left one as well, a bit, but not too much. But if you cut it, just make sure you cut it for real, because if you just drive on the curb, it makes the car bounce. So as you can see, I'm just pretty much putting the curb in the middle of the car. So yeah. Then we will head into Flugplatz. So I know that Flugplatz is not this one, but it's the right after that. So yeah, as you can see, just going full flat out, and then when I will just go alongside the exit road, I'm just gonna lift fully, and then I will just progressively go back on power until I'm reaching the apex, and then once I'm on the apex, lifting again after going full throttle right here. So going full throttle, then lifting a tiny bit again to get the second apex right here, and then as you can see, I'm just going full flat out. So a bit of rest before going into Schudenkreuz. I'm sorry if I said it wrong, but at least I tried. Then you can see that you have the crest just up there. Basically, I'm just lifting around the 5 km pole on the right side. So as you can see, just lifting, then just trying to run alongside the curb, and then once you are after the crest, then you can go back on power. You just have to make sure you're not pushing too much, because it's really easy to pick up on the steer. And then once, if you are too much on the inside, you will just struggle to take the next corner. So yeah, just make sure you're not pushing too much on the way out. Then just braking before that line, so I must be braking about 80% for that one. So just before that line, maybe 10 meters before that line, just going on the brake. I try to bring the car to the left, and then once I'm getting near of the corner, I will just stay with third. I will just release the brake, but I will hold them for a bit of time, because as you can see, it goes downhill, so you will carry some speed naturally, I would say. So you need to make sure you can stay a bit longer on the brake until the car gets the grip, and then once the car has the grip and you are on the inside, you can go back on power. You should be able to go quite deep on power, because it's a bit on camber, so the car naturally gets the grip and the traction, and then you can take the curb on the outside. But yeah, do not go too deep on the curb as well, because this one can be quite bad if you are too aggressive on it. Then we are going down right now, and then we will approach the kink, which is right here. So it's gonna be full flat out, and then as you will see, you have this pole on the right side. So basically, a few meters before that one, you have like a sort of tip. You feel a compression, and it's at that time, like just right here, you have a compression or something like that, which is a bit before this pole on the right side, and this is where I'm braking. So basically, once I'm into the compression, I just go on the brake. I will go down to fifth, and as you can see, I'm cutting quite a lot of curbing on the inside, because I want to make sure I can open up those next corners. So yeah, on the brakes, but not too much. Cutting the curb, then I will just go back on the brakes when the car is sort of straight. So I'm gonna put most of the pressure right here, because the car is straight, and then I stay with fourth gear. I'm releasing the brakes to get the rotation, cutting a bit of curbing on the inside. Then once I'm done with this right one, I can go slightly on power until I'm reaching, pretty much reaching the beginning of this left-hander. So as you can see, on power. Then once I'm alongside the curbing, I can release the throttle, go on the brake, and then I will just try to stay on the inside, down to second, still on the brakes, and then as you can see, just before actually reaching the apex, I go on power. I try to make sure I get the momentum and the rotation, turning to the right, on power still, and then I can open the steering, use the curb on the left. Then we are heading into the next corner. So for this one, I will keep the same gear, I guess. I don't think I'm putting fourth. Yeah, I stay with fifth gear. Basically for this one, I'm just using the you see the pavement changes. So this is what I'm using as a reference. You have the line which shows really well the reference. So as you can see, once I'm getting near this line, I'm just lifting. I'm braking a tiny bit on the way in to get a bit of rotation. But then once I'm on the apex, going on power, pushing until I'm reaching this part of the curbing on the right side, which is my braking reference. So as you can see, just a bit before reaching that, I'm gonna go on the brake. I will try to slow down the car, fourth and then third, releasing the brakes to get the rotation, and then I will just try to make sure I'm not pushing too early, because as you can see, the exit gets tighter. So I wanna make sure I can get out quite tight out of this one, so then I don't compromise my run going into the next one. So on power, not pushing too much, then the car is pretty much in the right position. I don't need to turn too much to the left to avoid the edge of the curbing. So yeah, avoided the curb, so we're good. Then next corner, once again, using the board on the left. Basically, once I'm down the crest, you can see the crest because you cannot see what's going on behind. So once I'm after that crest, I'm just gonna go on the brake once again. On the brakes, around 60%. I stay with third gear, as you can see. I'm not dropping down to second. I think third is really comfortable, to be fair, so you don't need to drop to second. So once again, on the brakes, holding the brakes, and then, as you can see, once I'm really going into the corner, I'm gonna go on throttle, trying to get the rotation. Then just be careful on the way out to not get some oversteer. And yeah, just make sure you're not going too wide as well on the curb, because um, it can be quite bad as well if you are too aggressive on it. Then we are going into this kink. I think I stayed flat out for that one. The chicane, sort of chicane, but it's a fast left and right, so it's not really a chicane as well. But yeah, it's full flat out. Then, as you can see, I bring the car to the left, and then, as you can see, once I'm on the left, like a few meters before the end of this curbing, it sort of feels like I'm on top of a small crest once again. I'm just gonna go on the brake, so you can see how far I am from the curbing on the end of the curbing on the left. So it's a good 10 meters, I guess. So at that time, I just go on the brake. I don't go too deep on the braking because it's actually a fast corner, so I don't want to ruin the momentum I have. So you can see just about 40% braking, but then I'm quickly releasing down to fourth. Yeah, down to fourth gear. So you can see down to fourth, releasing the brakes when I'm reaching the end of the curbing, and then I just use the power when the car is going down. You can see that the elevation change and it goes down. Then when I'm reaching that part, I'm just going on power, trying to control a bit the power because it's really easy to push too much and then into the grass. So yeah, I'm just trying to make sure, you stay a bit patient on the way out of that one. Then, as you can see, just using the beginning of the tire marks as a braking reference. So beginning of the tire marks, going on the brake. This one is quite deep. Braking zone. You have to make sure you don't brake too much at the beginning because you have to take this right-hander. So if you brake too much, the car is going to go straight. So you have to brake a bit stronger at the beginning. Getting close of this curbing, you just release a bit the brake pressure, and then once the car is straight right here, this is where you're going to put most of the braking. So we are about 75%, I would say. Then down to second, trying to make sure I can stick to the inside, and then once the car is slow enough and I can make the apex, then I can go back on power. I can push a lot out of this one. I don't need to care too much about traction because it's the Porsche, so it has a lot of traction naturally. And yeah, as you can see, I'm not really lifting or anything on the way out. It's pretty much on off. So yeah. Then we are going into the next corner. So as you can see, braking near the end of the curbing on the right side, a bit before that. The idea there is not to brake too late because then you end on the curb on the outside. It's not that good. So yeah, as you can see, end of the curbing, just going on the brake, down to third, releasing the brake when I'm going for the apex, and then on the apex, going on power, trying to get the momentum, just trying to not push too early, too hard, because I don't want to go on the curb on the right hand side. Then I will just bring the car to the left, and then once I'm into the compression, like you can see the compression. Once I'm in the compression, I just go on the brake slightly, not too much, because as you can see, it's really steep uphill, so the car is going to go slower by itself. And then down to third, just going early on power when it starts to, when I'm starting to get into the corner to the right. And then on the way out, just trying to make sure I open the steering as early as I can, because it's really to pick up some of the steer as well. And then full power using the curb. And then we are going fast forward because there is nothing really interesting into this left one. Then we are into Bergwerk. So for this one, I'm braking pretty much when you see right here that the line goes a bit to the left, so it seems like the track gets a bit wider or something. But yeah, that's what I'm using. It's a bit before the Yokohama board on the right. So this is what I'm looking at, this part of the line. And once I'm near this one, I just go on the brake. Same, I just go quite deep into the braking. Then I'm starting to get into the corner because I want to use the camber of the corner. And then, as you can see, once I'm really starting to get into the exit, then I just go back on power. I try to get the rotation, and at the same time, I need to get that momentum, because after that you have a very long straight. So yeah, I guess we're good with this corner. Ideally, you don't want also to enter this one too late, because you might miss some grip. Then we are going fast, going into this part, because once again, nothing really interesting before we are reaching Mud Curve, which is this pasking. So basically for that one, as you can see, I'm running all of the pavement on the right side to open up the corner. And as you can see, once I'm arriving near the end of the pavement, I'm just lifting. I'm braking a tiny bit on the way in, but that's all. Basically, once you are near the end of the curbing on the left side, this is where you can start to slowly go back on power. But yeah, you have to make sure you have a visual reference on the way out to know where you can go back on power. Basically, I would say that I just try to make sure I can keep the car in the middle of the track until I'm really see the exit and I can open the steering and push full power. But yeah, ideally, just make sure you are just lifting and a bit of braking on the way in, and just wait the end of this curbing before going back on power. That's my main advice. And then you just try to stay a bit tight before seeing the exit, and then you can push fully open the steering. So yeah. Then into this one, just be careful, minimize the steering angle. Then we will go into this right-hander, just one corner before the carousel. So for that one, I'm braking near. You can see the yellow painted stuff on the track. That's what I'm using as a braking reference. So I'm getting near this thing. I'm already lifting, and then I'm going on the brake, braking straight, trying to make sure I can have the best performance possible on the braking. So braking straight. Then, as you will see, I will drop to second, get my first apex, and then I will just try to stay all the way. At least I will try to stay on the inside until I can open the steering. I can see now the exit, so I know that I can push with second gear, trying to open the steering. The exit, as you can see, is quite wide, so you can use quite a lot of track, I would say. And then using the curb on the left, and then we are heading into the carousel. So for the carousel, I'm just braking when I'm basically by this part. So you can see the car gets into this, like, yeah, I'm braking around here, basically, to make it more simple. Like when the car is reaching, you can see that the track gets a bit tighter. This is where I'm braking. So yeah, not big deal. Just going on the brake, trying to make sure I bring the car sort of straight. Not trying to do something weird or anything. Just trying to bring the car straight on the brake, and then I will drop to second, going into the carousel, still on the brake in the first part, until the car is really slowed down, and then I just stay on throttle. I just try to make sure I keep pretty much the same amount of throttle, just trying to make sure I can get the rotation, keep the car on the inside of the carousel, and then on the way out, I can just push fully, get out of the carousel with third gear, and then we are heading into the second part of the Nordschleife, pretty much. As you will see, this part is full flat out, so nothing to worry about. And then we arrive into this corner, so braking at the beginning of this curbing, basically. So as you can see on the at the beginning of the curbing, I will just go on the brake slightly, just try to bring the car to the left, stay with fourth gear. Then once I'm on the apex, I can go back on power. I'm just gonna try to once again avoid the curb on the inside. I'm gonna release the brake, the throttle, because I don't wanna go too wide on the outside. With the big curb, it's really easy if you hit the curb too aggressively to hit the guardrail on the left. As you can see, avoiding the curb, the curb on the inside, going back on power, trying to make sure I can manage the throttle once again to not hit too aggressively the curbing. And then once the car is on the curbing, as soon as it is on the curbing, I just go on the brake, I go out of the curbing, I release the brake, and then I just try to make sure I can go as close as I can from the curb on the inside. Then on the way out, pushing on power, just trying to make sure I can avoid the curbing on the exit. Then going to the left, going to the right, and then I will just like release the throttle when I'm getting into this that deep or whatever it's called. Like you can see that the track gets like it's sort of compression maybe, or whatever it's called. But yeah, once I'm reaching that point, I'm just like releasing the throttle, go slightly on the brake, a bit of throttle between the two, but then as soon as I'm turning into the left, I'm just going on the brake. I try to slow down the car to make sure I can get the curb on the left. So getting a bit of curbing on the left. Not quite actually. I took a little bit of curbing, but yeah, with the Porsche it's a bit more difficult because the front is naturally really understeery. So you cannot quite take the same line as what you could do with the AMG, for example, or maybe the Aston and I forgot what I didn't say. AMG, Aston, and the M4. But yeah, if you want to retake the curb, you have to slow down a lot more. But yeah, I guess you lose a bit too much time then. So yeah. So as you can see on power, then going into this right one, just lifting to make sure I'm not gonna go too wide on the exit. As you can see, getting all of the curbing on the inside, and then I can push once again. Arriving at the end of this curbing, I'm just gonna go on the brake, and I'm gonna hold the brake until I'm reaching reaching my apex. And once I'm pretty much near the top of the crest, but just before reaching the top of the crest, I'm going on power. I try to open the steering on the way out. As you can see, you can use quite a lot of track on the outside as well, but do not push too much on the way out because the car can get a bit light as well. As you can see, I was on the limit, so just be careful about this. Then I will just try to keep the car not too far away from the middle of the track, because then it feels like it's a big effort to go from the very right to the left coming from this corner. So yeah, once I'm back on the track and off this runoff, I just go on the brake. As you will see, I just bring the car to the middle of the track, but a bit closer to the right, but without being too close to the white line on the right. And then as you can see, I will just go on the brake, all the brakes to really stick to the inside, take the apex. And then once I'm into this corner, I can go back on power. I will try to control a bit the power to stay on the inside. And then once I'm reaching the end of that curbing, or close to the end of that curbing, I'm gonna go on the brake down to third. I will hold the brake until I'm reaching the apex, or at least when I'm close of the apex. And then once I'm reaching that point, I'm gonna go on power, just trying to manage the power to not go too wide. Ideally, you wanna keep the right wheels on the track to not get the off track. Then into the YouTube corner, I don't remember, it's Brunchen, yeah. Once I'm reaching the end of this curbing, once again, I just go on the brake. I just try to make sure I don't turn in too early, because I don't wanna hit the curb on the inside. So you can really wait the very end of the curbing to turn in. Basically, on the brakes, as you can see, it's going uphill, so the car is going to go slower naturally. So you don't need to hold the brake for too long. That's why you can go quite early on power. Once again, you have to manage the power on the way out, because the car can get quite light as well. To avoid some oversteer, it's better to be careful with the throttle on the exit of that one. And then as you can see, you can use all of the curbing. On the way out, going to the right side of the track, you can see that there is a line on the track which goes from left to right. So this is what I'm gonna use as a reference. So as you can see, close to this line, just go on the brake. Once again, don't turn in too early because you don't want to hit the curb on the inside. So yeah, just go on the brake about 50% and then you will quickly release the brakes. I think I stay with third for that one. Yeah, I stay with third. And then as you can see, once you are making the apex, you can go on power. Once again, you just need to lift a tiny bit before going full power, but you can almost go full power quite early. Then you lose all of the curbing on the outside, and then we will go into the jump just after that, so you stay flat. And then just before the jump, I will just lift. As you will see, just before the jump, I'm just lifting. And then once the car lands from the jump, I just go on the brake, go down to fourth. Then I will just hold a bit the braking before getting my apex. And then once I made the apex and I'm on the inside, then I will just go on power, try to lift a bit in the first part to make sure I can get my second apex right here. But then once I made the apex right here, I can just stay flat out all the way. Then taking the curb on the right side, just make sure you're not clipping the curbing on the left side to not fly into the air and crash. Basically, that's what happens most of the time when you take that curb, no matter which car you are using. Then we go through the bed of S's. So as you can see, really flat part. You can cut this left turn actually. It doesn't feel too bad. Just be careful to have the steering straight to avoid any bad surprises. And then yeah, as you can see, full flat out. Now we are going into this corner. So as you can see, when I'm reaching those this part of the track with the big painted white thing on the track, this is where I'm gonna brake. So when I'm getting by those those three squares, pretty much like you can see them. Once I'm by those three things, I can just release the throttle, go on the brake. As you can see, I just stay under 50%. I will just bring the car on the brakes, but I'm gonna lift a bit before reaching actually the apex, the brakes. So as you can see, I go on the brake, and then a bit before reaching the apex, I'm gonna go back on power. So you are braking at the beginning, getting the rotation, but this corner is so fast that you can just go quite early on power as well. So on the brakes, about 50%, releasing the brakes, and then before reaching the apex, I go back on power. I just try to make sure I'm not pushing too much when I'm like facing the exit, because as you can see, the next corner arrives pretty quickly after that. So ideally, I want the car to be in the middle of the track and not too much on the inside for the next corner. So as you can see, on power, but not quite pushing, about 50%. And then once I'm getting near the tire marks on the ground, I just go on the brake, down to third, then releasing the brakes to get the rotation. And then as you can see, quite early on power, pushing a bit, but not that much, because once again, it's really easy to pick up some oversteer. It looks like a bit of camber as well on the way out. So yeah, I'm not pushing that much on the way out, just making sure I avoid the oversteer. And then once I'm facing the exit, I can use all of the curbing on the right side. Then I will stay pretty much all the way on the curbing. So I'm gonna brake as well on the curbing for the second carousel, the mini carousel. And then as you can see, I'm just gonna release the brake when I'm getting into the carousel. And once I'm really into the carousel, I just go on power, I push fully, just open the steering on the way out, and I'm using all of the track on the outside. So once again, on the brakes, and then when I'm really getting into the carousel, I can go on power, push fully, and then I just make sure I can open the steering on the way out to avoid getting some oversteer with the small jump or bounce you're gonna make out of the carousel. Then we're getting close to the end of the lap before reaching Dottinger. So for this long right-hander, I'm just gonna go at first on the curbing, as you can see, using the curb on the inside, and then just before the end of the curb, I'm gonna lift. I don't think I'm braking. No, I'm not braking for that one. So I'm just lifting, as you can see, leaving the curb, like just right here, pretty much. You can see right there, the line goes a bit to the right and then it gets straight. So yeah, pretty much when I'm reaching that part, I'm just gonna leave the curbing, just lift, and then I'm just gonna go back on power before reaching this this apex. So as you can see, reaching the apex, going on power, then I'm gonna try to push a bit the car to get to the outside of this corner, and then once I'm you can see that once I'm close, I'm pretty much on top of the crest, I would say, because as you can see, you cannot see behind, and then you're going on top of the crest, and then you start to see what's going um, after that. So at that point, this is where I'm starting to lift a bit, and then once I'm really reaching the inside of the corner, and I'm reaching the beginning of that curve, this is where I'm starting to push more and more. So yeah, once again, bringing the car to the left. Then once the car is on the outside and near the white line, I'm just gonna lift to bring the car into the inside for the exit of this long right one. And then once I'm reaching the beginning of that curve, I'm just gonna start to quickly build up the momentum, go flat out, and then we have Dottinger, so we're gonna go faster through that one. As you can see, you stay to the left, you have some rest before pretty much reaching the biggest braking zone of the track. So yeah, bit of rest once again. Then we will have this this kink, so it's fully flat, just stay on the inside, and then we're going into Tiergarten. So for this one, it's fully flat into the left, into the right. But yeah, once you are reaching the middle of the right, I mean, you are going to start to lift a bit because you want to make sure you are not going too far to the middle of the track to enter the braking zone. So yeah, because ideally you want to make sure you brake as straight as you can going into the last corner. But if you are braking too far to the middle of the track, when you are reaching this part, you're gonna have to put more steering angle. But if you are braking more to the right side, you can go a bit more straight, I would say, because you don't have to put as much steering angle arriving at that part. So as you can see, I'm just lifting a bit going into the right one, so then I can put the car a bit more to the right, and then just before reaching that line, I would say maybe between 3 and 5 meters, I just go on the brake, as you can see, deep on the brake, down to fifth, fourth gear. Then, as you can see, once I'm reaching this spot, which is a bit bouncy, I just release a bit the brake to avoid getting some lockup. And then once the car is back on its four wheels, I can just go back on the brakes, trying to make sure I can open up the entry of this last corner, down to third, and then as you can see, just before going on the curb, I just go back on power, trying to make sure I'm not pushing too much to avoid climbing the curb on the left, and then on the way out, opening the steering up to fourth, just before the line, up to fifth gear, and we are crossing the line, and it was the lap around the Nurburgring Nordschleife 24 hours layout. Alright everyone, so we're done for today. That was the week 10 lap guide of the Sports Car Challenge by Falcon Tire around the Nürburgring Nordschleife 24 hours layout with the Porsche 718 GT4. I hope it wasn't too long for you. I tried to give you as many details as possible without taking way too long to explain. I could have spoke for like 3 hours, I guess. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one and you learned from it. Difficult track, so yeah, I hope I've been helpful for you. As usual, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Coach Dev Academy channel and join the Discord server if you have any questions about all the work we are making. And yeah, see you next week for the week 11. So yeah, have a good week of racing and see you next time. Bye bye.